IVF clinics have sprouted all over the country, and infertility is rising, making it a big business opportunity. To understand more about what's happening, I decided to visit Dipalie and Nidhi from Arva Health.
This is Nidhi. This is the semen collection room, and this is a really important space in the entire clinic. We actually ran a whole research study asking men, what do you want out of this experience? Because there's a lot of performance anxiety that comes with it. And they just said that they wanted something clean, something quiet, and a phone charger. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
I sat down with them to break down what are the reasons for rising infertility in India today, what both men and women can do to deal with this problem, what are the solutions available in the market, their pricing and cost structures, and what are the common pitfalls that customers can avoid. This is Founder's Office with Sarthak Ahuja. So we have both Dipalie and Nidhi. Both of them haven't turned 30 yet.
Yeah, we haven't.
Which is very interesting for you to start a business in fertility, really. And what intrigued me is the fact that there's so many IVF clinics, no matter where I go, in India and even outside India right now.
Yeah.
Practically in even tiny local markets. It seems like it's a very profitable, very good business, but it's also scary because essentially the business is making money off of something which comes with a lot of pain. So, what prompted you guys to get into this?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah? We can start wherever.
Why did we start this company? I mean, we honestly were just answering the question, is the biological clock real? And how much time do I have? And by I mean us. How much time do we have as two people that are in our mid-20s and your family is pressuring you around you with questions like, when are you going to get married? When are you going to settle down? When are you going to have kids? You're wasting time. Is an MBA the right move? We're dealing with all of these questions, and for us, it was okay, we want to put these questions at bay and instead try to figure out for ourselves, A, if we even want kids, and B, if this is even something that you can find out about. And so we essentially just went on an adventure together, and we were just in search of this answer. And in the search of the answer, we ended up speaking to tons of women across India, big cities, small cities, friends, celebrities, the whole gamut. Spoke to doctors, holistic medicine experts, endocrinologists, functional medicine doctors, infertility specialists. And we ended up at a place where we understood what ovarian reserve testing is, which is essentially a simple blood test that you do to figure out what your egg reserve looks like. And that question essentially somehow has ended up us being here, where we just put this thing out. We got a huge response from a lot of women and realized oh my God, we are not the only people that are answering these questions or are actually thinking about these questions in our mind. And it's actually top of mind for anybody in their late 20s, early 30s, where they're trying to navigate this new life that we are living as a generation, where it's almost normal to have a baby in your early 30s. It's normal for women to be financially independent, to dream bigger and go after those dreams. And with all of that, the clock is really not keeping up with how we are evolving as women.
And that's really where the fertility problems start, because our career peaks and our biological peaks are kind of going hand in hand as women, where it starts declining in your mid to late 30s. And if we haven't thought about our fertility anytime before that, then what does the future look like for most of us? So yes, there are a lot of IVF clinics coming up, but I think that's an indicator of how large of a problem that we are facing today as a generation.
And if imagine someone wants to start a fertility company today, quite like you guys have, what kind of capital investment do you think it would take?
Okay, so the reason why IVF is expensive is because there is a lot of specialized equipment, a lot of initial capital, and of course a lot of expensive labor involved. So when it comes to a lab, to just set up a lab, it could be anywhere from 1 crore to 4 crores, depending on how large of a space you have and the extent of the equipment that you have chosen.
So if someone really has to check whether they're going to face fertility issues or not, you have a checklist where you would say first do this, second do this, third do this, or if you belong in a range which is such and such age, this is what you should focus on. If you're beyond 35, then
So
it's
the
tough.
way that I always look at it is fertility is defined by 5 main factors.
Okay.
One is the quantity of the eggs, which is defined by AMH. Second one is the quality of our eggs, which we try and work on through lifestyle. Third one is stress. Fourth one is just toxins. So toxins being smoking, drinking, environmental pollutions, the microplastics in our food. All of these have an impact on the way that we are able to conceive or even just think about our fertility, because it's not just dependent on one, and it should never be dependent on one, because there's so much more than that. And there's also like genetics, right? A couple that is perfectly healthy, a man and a woman, they're both perfectly healthy, they've been trying for a very long time and still it doesn't work. And that's what is known in the medical community as unexplained infertility, which there is no answer. We can't really gauge why you're not able to conceive. And in those cases is really where most people prescribe IVF as well. Or if a woman has blocked fallopian tubes or many other pre-existing medical conditions, that's when most likely IVF is recommended as a
So far, we've
treatment
also just only talked about the women. There's also the men. Like you could have excellent AMH, healthy eggs, healthy body. You're not stressed, or you're managing your stress. But if the sperm health is not at par with what's happening, then you're going to experience issues as well. So one of the things that we also try to do is, if you have a partner, step one is just understanding your baseline. Like trying to figure out where are you on the spectrum. Like if we do an evaluation, we do a blood test, we do an ultrasound scan, we see like what everything looks like at a certain point, and not just for women but also for men. It's really important for us to bring men into this conversation, because they haven't really been included in this conversation for the longest time.
We've also, it's really interesting that in the context of fertility, the emotional counseling is done with the woman and the financial counseling is done with the man. And so you, in that structure, almost ignoring that the men might have any kind of issue other than financial, that the stress that they carry and the weight that they carry also is ignored today entirely.
The thing about men though is that men are lucky. Like they can change their entire sperm health very quickly.
Really?
Yeah, because you produce sperm every single day.
So it takes a man about 90 days to produce a fresh batch of sperm, if the easiest way possible. Which means that if you start today and you work on your health for a period of 90 days, you're able to, for the large part... You
can actually transform your entire sperm health.
Really? So if someone's if someone's getting a really bad score, like as a man,
sure, yeah,
they can just change it completely?
They can change their entire life.
And what would you say they should do? Track your sleep, get like 8 hours of sleep, don't get
eat
stressed.
well, sleep well, move your body,
work out,
work out.
Insulin, bring the insulin down,
and then also
inflammation down.
You can, I think even men are sometimes prescribed supplements like CoQ10, even folate, that actually help with sperm quality. Like if the woman has to carry the baby for 9 months, like the least the man can do is like work on his health for 9 months prior to the conception, because that makes a huge difference. Because even if you do conceive, which happens quite a few times, you might miscarry. Like that's very normal. I think to answer your question, I don't know, I just feel like we are seeing a shift right now, but I think historically and it's not just men, like most people, when they think about fertility, do not think that it's going to be their problem. Like they don't think about it because they're like, okay, it's not going to happen to me. This is not my future. I'm going to be okay. And that's a similar mindset even for men. They're like, this is not my problem. Like I'm not going to experience this problem, which kind of folds into the fabric of the entire narrative that exists in the space.
So what's the journey of a typical couple that's going through a fertility issue? When do you think is that they begin to realize, okay, there is a challenge.
Yeah.
And then what are the current steps that they should follow or do follow, but you would say don't make these mistakes and maybe go through actually doing A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
So that you can conceive much faster, quicker. You don't have to go through the pain that you see a lot of other people go through. Are there avoidable things that people can do?
It's interesting because everybody assumes that they will naturally conceive the first time that they try.
Yeah.
Because we've been taught our whole lives to try and not get pregnant, and so when you do try, they assume that the first try will be successful.
I think trying to conceive is actually a loop. It's not a plan. Like people that start the process and they keep, it's like this, and they like get stuck in this loop. So when someone's trying to conceive, first of all, the first 3 months are maybe the happiest, the most fun months, because you're excited. You're like, okay, we're gonna have this kid, we're gonna try to have a baby, we're gonna do it at home. It's usually when the 3-month mark hits, like they've tried 3 times. Once, first month, second month, third month. Third month it doesn't work, and then they're like, okay, is it me? Is it you? What's not working? Like, what are we doing that's not resulting in like a baby? Like, why? I thought this was supposed to be easy. Why is it a little bit more difficult than I thought it was? That's when they start like looking into like, okay, maybe that's when they discover like ovulation tracking. Like a lot of people, like 90% of people don't even know when your fertile window is, which is like the best time to conceive in a month. After that as well, I think around the 6-month mark it's like, okay, is this you? Is it me? Should we speak to somebody about this? Maybe we should talk to a doctor. And it's
That's when they speak to a doctor.
Yeah.
So the first indicator, external indicator that we know that a couple is trying to conceive is when they go, or when the woman goes and speaks to her gynecologist.
Yeah.
And for us, that's a really interesting insight while building this company, is because the very first time that they acknowledge that they might have an issue, or if they're trying to be proactive, your gynecologist becomes your first line of defense. In the information that you get, in trying to make sure all your markers are okay. But in most senses, women also might not get good information back from the gynecologist, because no one wants to tell you that this might be hard for you. No gynecologist wants to say that either. And in general, it's recommended to at least try for a whole year before any kind of intervention. So you try naturally for a year, you work on your health, you do it stress-free. It's only after trying for a year is when any doctor will recommend that you start taking tests, or you start
or you even
exploring.
Meet a fertility specialist.
And so we essentially kind of help them understand how to track ovulation, how they can use ovulation test kits also to try and test if they're like ovulating during that period, and then try naturally without the stress also for as long as you possibly can. Because the moment and this is, you want to share the story of like the failures? Because
yeah, I think, something that was, we all kind of casually talk about the fact that, oh, this person has been trying for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But what that actually means is that if someone tried for 2 years, they have had 24 failed attempts. And 24 failures at trying to have a baby that you thought that is going to be easy for you, is going to come naturally to you, is genuinely heartbreaking. And the amount of, it adds pressure every time you fail, because it's not just internal, it's also external. Like there is shame attached to the fact that I couldn't do this thing, and I'm not able to do this thing that's supposed to come naturally and easily to me, because I don't know, even in the book Sapiens, it's like we are reproductive creatures, like the purpose of our existence is also in some capacity reproduction. And that is something that's inherent to who we are as people. But now I failed at this. Like my most basic thing that I'm supposed to be able to do, I have failed at that task. And so there's a lot of like technical tools that we can potentially help with, but I think that the biggest part is actually the mental health of both the partners, because even someone trying to conceive for 2 years, it's not that you're trying to conceive for 2 years, you're trying to conceive every other day, like during the days that you're ovulating, morning, night, whatever it is, like whatever schedule you've got going on is happening so many times that you're trying, that the process of trying to have a baby also almost becomes mechanical. It like causes conflict between partners. There is like distancing that happens. It changes the relationship dynamic as well, that you don't really know, where do I share this, like who do I talk to about this. And then the other thing is, like, you know, a lot of people also come to us and say, like, you know what, like I knew somebody that like did 2 rounds of IVF, but then like decided to quit, and then they got naturally pregnant. And I think that it's also, it goes back to like the stress. There's just so much stress to perform. There's so much stress to have a baby. If your health is not in check, after trying for month on month, you're losing it. Like, I mean, have you been through something where you have failed so much over time, over years?
So it kind of becomes a part of your identity, and I'm sure it'll kind of permeate to other parts of your life as well. Like, you don't feel good about yourself, it might start impacting your work and just your relationship with your partner.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine if someone who's not married, what tests or steps can they tangibly take to know whether they're going to face this in the future, for both men as well as women? And after someone gets married, what is going to be your recommendation that try this much and then maybe do these tests so that you kind of nip it in the bud, or at least diagnose it well in advance?
I think I'm a huge believer of getting tested earlier on. I think that that's the journey that we went through as well, because I didn't want to wake up one day at 35 and then realize I have all of these issues, and I could have done something about this earlier on. So I subscribe to the ideology that it's always better to find out earlier, even if there is fear rooted around it and if there is stress rooted around it. So some of the, because that is me, I get stressed out about everything. And so some of the tests that I think that we should all take as women, especially in our mid-20s, late 20s, is AMH and a whole bunch of PCOS biomarkers, metabolic biomarkers, and generally vitamin D, menstrual health biomarkers, just to make sure that everything is okay. And for men, it's not prescribed today, but I would always suggest getting a semen analysis, especially if you know that you want to have a kid at any point in the future, because it's a cascading effect. Once your health starts declining, it just starts spiraling, and then it gets worse over time. And sometimes it's very hard to recover back from that. And you don't want to get to, when you're trying to conceive, to then find out that you have an issue. It's always better to be a little bit more proactive, especially if you have the ability to do so.
So what I'm hearing again and again is that people get really frustrated by the time they've tried for about 1 year, 2 years, and then they're like, okay, they go meet the doctor and the doctor says IVF. Maybe the doctor does not even say IVF, they say something like an IUI or an ICSI and all these terms. So I'm assuming there are several layers or steps leading up to the ultimate nirvana IVF solution. So what are those steps that people can take up apart from fixing their lifestyle? Imagine fixing their lifestyle is between 0 to 10 on the scale of 0 to 100. And they've done that, like super fit, bulked up, they run marathons, they eat well, they do all of that. What are the other things available that they can do leading up to IVF?
The fertility journey is never linear. It's never that one story is replicable over multiple different couples, because everyone's history and health profile is very different. It's dependent on what your specific problem might be. It's dependent on if the problem's on the man's side, then the doctor might say that an IUI procedure might be a good starting point for you, which is basically a procedure where they extract the sperm, they remove the liquids out of it, and then they kind of navigate it back to find the egg, which works for a lot of couples.
And what does that mean? I'm assuming you give a semen sample.
Yes.
In the lab, they're going to extract the sperm, remove the liquids, and then they're going to insert that sperm into the womb.
Yeah.
So you're not really extracting eggs from the lady.
No,
Right.
so you're just taking the sperm and you're helping it go where it needs to go.
Okay, and that is called IUI.
IUI.
But if the problem is that they have just not been able to conceive and they haven't found any historical issues, then they do ovulation induction, which is just trying to find out when the ovulatory period is and try and boost the egg that is about to ovulate. And then hopefully they conceive naturally.
And this boosting happens through
Through
oral
medication.
supplements?
Yeah,
Yes,
through a medication.
Oral medication.
Okay, oral medication.
Yes.
There are no injections.
No.
Okay, got it.
And
What is
that's,
this called? This is called
It's called
ovulation
induction. So you're inducing ovulation,
Got
which
it.
is when you ovulate is when you are the most fertile, essentially. Egg comes
Correct.
out, now it should get fertilized with sperm and then therefore you conceive. So
Okay.
they're trying to induce ovulation in people so that now you ovulate, so at least we know, okay, you are going to ovulate right now because you've taken so and so medication, and so please go try and conceive.
Okay, and imagine now, God forbid, that doesn't work out for someone. What's the next step?
So
Yeah.
again, it's the step that might not be right for you in that moment also, right? If you don't have an existing issue that is explained, a doctor might still not prescribe IVF to you because that might not be the protocol that's right. It's only in the case where someone has a blocked fallopian tube, or if they have a low AMH, or if like IUI doesn't work, that's usually the point where the doctor might say, okay, IVF is the next protocol that we'll try to increase the chance of success.
And can you walk me through exactly what is the IVF process?
So every woman has naturally a defined structure and hormones that help her ovulate once a month. We are born with a certain number of eggs, and every month we produce
release
a certain number of eggs, right? Like in a group. So that group for a woman might be 4, that group for a woman might be 10, the group for that woman might be 20. And our body produces enough natural hormone to be able to ovulate one egg out of that whole group. The rest of them die. In the process of IVF, they give you external hormone and medications that try and ovulate all of the group, the whole group. So that when we do an extraction, we're trying to extract that entire group in that 1 month.
Okay.
And then once they extract that group of eggs, they take it to the lab, which is the most important part of the entire IVF process. And they kind of analyze how many such eggs have matured, or they are of good quality.
Ready for fertilization?
Right, ready for a fertilization.
Or freezing for later use?
Right.
Sure. In the IVF process, you usually extract the eggs and then they will get evaluated in the lab by the embryologist. Usually people want to conceive right then and there, which is why the man will give sperm in the case of IVF, and you mix the sperm and the egg, and that's when fertilization happens, and then the embryos are formed. And then they'll also watch the embryos that do grow.
And all of this is happening in the lab?
This is all happening in the lab.
So a question that you asked earlier is, what is the difference between ICSI and IVF?
Yeah.
Right? So traditionally IVF was that there is an egg and they kind of just
They
input
drop the
like a
sperm
sperm sample, and multiple sperms kind of like try and fertilize
fertilize the
until
egg.
one wins, and that becomes the embryo. ICSI is basically a super specialized methodology where they inject the sperm into the egg and force it to become an embryo. So they find a really good quality sperm and they try and fuse it with the embryo, which again helps that embryo form and
So
a
there's
higher
no
likelihood.
spray and pray, it's like
Correct.
one
It's more
focused
focused
sperm.
effort.
Yeah, that's an ICSI.
Okay, so that's
Spray
a
and,
step up.
So spray and pray is still IVF because although it is in a lab, so you have the eggs that have been identified, and then you have the sperm sample that's given. You mix those two and see if these eggs fertilize. In ICSI, it's self-selected, like it's selected by the embryologist itself, like based on a bunch of different markers, like the ones that we spoke about earlier, which is motility, volume, all of those. And they select the sperm and then they put the sperm into the egg. So they're saying like, hey, this is the best sperm that we have identified, and this is the best egg that we have identified, and we are going to fuse these two together and help it fertilize because it has together the best chance of a better embryo.
Got
And
it.
that is what most IVF clinics would use today as a methodology to get better success, because it's more targeted, it is
there's
more
more
control, it's more controllable by the embryologist.
Okay, so all of us can imagine for a man to extract the sperm is not a painful process. It's not invasive in any way.
No.
But for a woman, for you to really take out those eggs, what is the process like? Does it mean taking injections? Does
Yeah.
it mean a minor surgical process
Yeah.
of extraction?
Yeah.
What is the time like?
Yeah, so for the women, so this part of the process until the eggs are removed from the body or the retrieval is actually very similar to egg freezing. Just this part of it, where as a woman you get a blood test done and you are first evaluating your baseline. You see, okay, where is my AMH at this month? Like, what are the amount of eggs that I'm potentially going to get? Then there is a protocol that's created for that particular person, basis these blood biomarkers and their scans that they do, and they are prescribed hormone injections to take every single day. And these hormone injections, as Nidhi mentioned, essentially mimic the hormones in your body so that we can grow as many of the follicles that are coming out this month.
Okay, so it's almost like the body is not producing as much of those hormones.
Yeah, because it was
So
not
you're
designed
externally.
So it's the body
Yeah.
is designed to just ovulate,
ovulate one or
egg.
two eggs. Yeah, it's not designed to ovulate 10, 12 eggs.
So you're creating many.
Yeah, and so we're trying in IVF egg freezing or in this particular part of the process, you are trying to grow as many of those eggs as possible.
You're artificially inducing those hormones
Got it.
for it to try and grow that entire group.
And
Yeah.
a lady has to take injections every day
So you
for
say
how long?
every single day for 12 days, and through those 12 days also you're going to get checked every 3 to 4 days. You get a scan done, you meet with the doctor, you look at how your body is responding to the medication. If there is a change that needs to be made, maybe we need lesser, maybe we need more, so that we can reach the optimal amount of eggs that we're going to get from the cycle. All those changes are made throughout that entire 12-day period. And then on the 12th day or the 13th day, after looking at how the eggs have grown with this artificial injections or hormones, they're given what is known as a trigger shot. And so the trigger shot essentially is telling your body, hey, it's time for us to release all of these eggs. And so that's what's happening. And then 48 hours after the trigger shot is given is when it's a 20-minute procedure. You go in, you like aspirate the eggs out and take all of the eggs that have grown, and that's pretty much it.
Under anesthesia.
Under
So
anesthesia.
that's
So
when
it's
the
a
surgical
painful process.
No, so it's not a painful process.
So it's a local anesthesia.
It's
you're
a
not like-
minimally invasive procedure.
Yeah.
So you're under local anesthesia. You go in the morning or whatever your time is. The procedure itself is 20 minutes, and then you spend about an hour or so in the recovery area waiting to get off of the anesthesia and also giving your body some time to rest. And then for a period of 24 hours to about 72 hours after, you're told to be on bed rest with a light walk because you have gone through this like procedure, and after which you're fine to continue. We've heard a lot of women who go back to work the next day who are basically on their feet and recovering well.
Okay. So once these eggs are extracted and the semen's taken, now it's up to the lab or the embryologist to kind of create embryos and multiple, maybe if the situation demands it.
Yeah.
How much time would that take?
So the embryologist or the embryology lab is the heart of the fertility journey or the IVF journey. That is the most important step and the most important people, because what they are dealing with is a
Singular
single
cells.
cell. And so they have to be extremely specialized and extremely able in an environment that demands the right pressure, the right the pressure, the air temperature, and the quality, and just generally has to be the most pristinely clean area ever. And so once they get the eggs from the woman, they kind of analyze first the viability of the eggs that they have gotten, and then also
And then they also look at like stage of growth, like because all of them might not have grown the same way.
they might have genetic genetic abnormalities. So there are options where you can get a genetic test done on either a cell or a embryo. And so they essentially fuse the embryo and then wait a couple of days, maybe 5 days to 7 days, for that embryo to become, say, from one egg, one cell go to about 100 cells. And once it's reached that maturation is when they decide, okay, should we freeze at this point and use it in the next month or use it in that same month?
Okay. So that's when the implantation decision happens.
Right.
Correct.
And what is the implantation process like?
So then you're doing like a embryo transfer. And so in this case, you go back. So this in IVF, there's two procedures that happen. One is the retrieval and one is the embryo transfer. And so the embryo transfer is when you take the grown embryo that you've selected, like, okay, this is the one that's going back in. We think this is the best one, best chance of success, best chance of baby, outcome, everything at the end of it. And that embryo is put back into the woman's body. And then it is left to grow, and this is the part that's called the 2-week wait, where you implant the embryo and you're waiting for about 2 weeks to understand, okay, am I pregnant or not pregnant? And usually after the 2 weeks, people end up taking like a pregnancy test or a beta-HCG test, the same thing. One is on the counter and one is a blood test to see if the embryo itself has implanted, because that doesn't happen all the time. Right. And so if it's implanted, then you're kind of on your way in that particular journey, and the rest of your embryos are put in frozen storage.
Okay. For use later, where God forbid, if this leads to a miscarriage,
Sure.
you have a lot more to try it out
Yeah.
with.
Right.
Okay. And is this process of implanting the embryo or the embryo transfer, is that painful or?
It's very similar to one you're removing and one you're putting back.
Okay.
It's also, sometimes people do anesthesia, some people don't, but it's also a very 30-minute procedure where they implant it back.
And what do you think would be the chance of success for such a process? Now someone's really frustrated.
Yeah.
They've gone through 2 years of trying. How many such cycles do you think are typically needed?
It depends.
It
Yeah,
depends.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
The chance of success itself in the context of fertility is an indefinite measure, right?
No, I'd say success is having a baby.
Yeah.
Okay. So IVF in general medically has about a 50% chance of success,
Okay.
which means that you are 50% likely to conceive in that month, given everything that has worked out for you. Which is why it's a game of probability. It's like you're weighing in on every month, what is my probability through IVF to conceive this month? Highly dependent on all the other factors that we spoke
But
of
would you
before.
say a person should be mentally prepared to go through it at least 3-4 times as a 80% worst case scenario, just trying to, in their mind, to be mentally prepared that quite like I kept trying naturally and it didn't happen and it probably led to a bit of a heartbreak. Even this may not work out and I may have to go the next month and the month after that. So the reason I ask this question is it's just tuning your mind in the right direction to not suddenly break down again if it doesn't happen, and you can't control it, but it's just to be educated on it.
I'm a pragmatist, so I would always say every time you try, think of it as a 50% chance of success.
Okay.
Like I have a 50% odd to conceive here. That is maybe a higher likelihood of conceiving if I was trying naturally. That gives me a 5 to 10% odd of conceiving naturally.
Got it. Okay.
But that's like what you just asked is just making me think that, yeah, wow, people do not actually come in with that mindset. And that is also part of the issue, right? Because that expectation setting is not really done well at.
Is it?
It's not.
So doctors will say, you've come to me,
It's
I
also
guarantee.
you're also dealing, like it's very complex, right? Like you are dealing with somebody that is, if you think about, yes, Nidhi today is a pragmatist, but like Nidhi, when she's at her worst self, I don't know how much of, like she might be, but like the way that she is, the way that a doctor might speak to her might not be like the way that, you know, Nidhi needs the pragmatism, which is also part of.
See, I think that a lot of the times when a lot of people go to the doctor, they don't know to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Right? So when a doctor says, okay, IVF is your best shot of success, they will believe it because one, a doctor is saying it, and because medically it has a higher chance of success than trying naturally. But they don't really know to ask the right question in terms of what does the success mean for specifically someone like me with my health history and my health background.
Okay. So what should be those questions to ask?
I mean, it's in some sense just asking the question, what is it for me? What is my success rate? Not what is the clinic success rate? How likely am I to conceive naturally within this first IVF cycle? Because for a lot of people, that chance might be relatively high. It could be a 70-80%. And for a lot of people, that chance might be like 10 to 20%. Because
Despite going through
despite
IVF.
going through IVF, because you might require multiple rounds to get there.
Okay.
Because it's like she was saying earlier, right? Like it's a probability game. And so like at each step of the process that we just spoke about, you say you get like 10 eggs, right? In the first retrieval. Now those 10 eggs, when they go into the lab, they're going to get evaluated. Some of those eggs are going to be like, okay, these are not great, we only now have 6 eggs. Okay, from the 6 eggs now we are going to try to fertilize them with the sperm. Okay, only 3 have gotten fertilized, and then out of that, like maybe 2 will grow into becoming like healthy embryos that we can use for implantation. Now you're left with 2 from like a 10 cycle, right? So you have 2 chances of implantation from this particular cycle, and in this you could have 2 kids. They both could work for you.
So they both implanted at the same time?
No,
hoping
they're both not implanted at the same time. It's implanted one at a time.
Okay,
Some
so you're
doctors
saying
try.
1 month there's one
Yeah, and then the next
implantation?
month, if it didn't work, then the next month it'll get implanted again.
But then how
How
you should have a
twins?
lot more twins?
Yeah. So a lot of doctors, if there are say 4 embryos, they try and implant two embryos at a time.
Some do this too.
To increase the,
The chances
likelihood
of
of one
implantation.
surviving.
Okay, and then both of them may survive.
Same,
and
Yeah.
you
both of them
just
may
have
survive.
twins.
Yeah.
Right.
Or one may
Okay.
survive and one may not.
You know how I understand there is a lot of it depends here for
Yeah.
several factors, and that's very
everything.
well established, of
Right.
course. I like to think of it like if it's a 50-50 chance, it's
Yeah.
almost like flipping a coin because
Yeah.
you'll either get a heads or a tails.
Yeah.
And I would assume how many flips would I need if I pick a head?
Yeah.
How many flips would I need that I'd at least get one head? And I would
Right.
think, okay, if I were to flip it 4 times,
I'll at least get one.
I'll
head.
at least get one. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming if you go by that logic or mind
Yeah.
way of thinking, you probably say, okay, 4 tries I should ideally get there.
Yeah.
Now when I think about it, 4 tries means
Changes the expenses.
it changes one, the expense.
Yeah.
Second, that also means if I'm supposed to take 12 injections in one cycle, that is 48 injections that I'm going to be taking
Over a
over a
period of
4-month or a
Correct.
6-month period if I need a break. I may go through 8 local anesthesia procedures of extraction, and so the kind of mental toll it can really have on people is just
It's a lot.
grueling.
It's
It's
a brutal
grueling.
process.
Is
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Especially like, yes, there's people that like, okay, there's some lucky people. And there's
I
some
mean-
people that end up with like a high probability in the first try itself. And that's great. But for the people that do it multiple times, the amount of resilience that it requires on that particular person, that couple, to keep going, because it is painful, and people do take breaks. People do take breaks between the process because they're like, I just
like, and when I say painful, like when you say painful, is it emotionally painful or is there also like
Physically.
physical pain?
So it's nuanced, right? IVF in general, the procedure, the toll that it takes on a woman is nuanced because you have you're dealing with the stress and the pressure that you're getting externally first. And so you're kind of almost forcing yourself into IVF, and that's what we've heard from a lot of women. They're almost trying to escape the pressure of society and hoping IVF is the answer to that stress. So there's like a pre-existing emotional, mental stress. Then you go through the procedure itself, which it is a toll on your body. And when you start with really poor health and you go through this hormone stimulation, it might leave your body in a worse place than when you started. So there is a physical stress.
Yeah, because
Then you have the added stress of maybe not conceiving potentially because it's a 50-50. And then you have the financial stress where a lot of people are maybe taking out loans or selling off their gold or whatever the case might be. And so you're essentially taking a very large bet into IVF when you choose to do one.
And I know insurance doesn't cover this, right? So there are loans available for people to do IVF, like there are EMI schemes and
yeah,
stuff.
there
Yeah.
is EMIs for people to actually pay month on month.
Very few insurance
Very few
schemes
insurance.
accept IVF.
Okay, so what would be the cost of one such procedure? Give me a range.
So it would go anywhere from like 2.5 lakhs The upper limit is upper limit.
I mean, upper limit is based on which doctor you go
Which
to.
doctor you go to,
But
which
give me
clinic
an
you-
average, like, or give me a baseline to say that in about
People end
lakh
up
and a
paying
half
like
to lakh
about 2.5 lakhs to 3.5 lakhs. Like they sit within that framework for one cycle.
for one cycle.
Correct.
Okay, and let's just assume, and I understand these are services, you're essentially paying for the cost of the lab and the cost of the doctor. Services definitely have a much higher margin, which people, I mean, know
Yeah.
for sure. But how much of the cost of this would you also say is attributable to, say, just the injections that they take?
So
yeah.
it's broken up into, I would say, 3 parts.
Okay.
The first part is the testing, scans, kind of the
Consults.
pre-existing work that you do. Then you have the medications itself, and then you have the procedure.
Okay.
Right? And so the first part, which includes the diagnostics, the scanning, the initial doctor consultations, all of those you might end up spending anywhere from 5K to about 20K, depending on how many you go to, where you go, what you do,
Okay,
which
so
lab
about
you
20,000.
choose.
So
And
you would
the-
say about 10% of the cost would just be the preliminary
Correct.
tests
Right.
and everything.
And then
okay?
the injections would be anywhere from about 70,000 to about 1 lakh.
A lakh and a half.
A lakh and a
sometimes.
half,
Again,
sometimes.
depending on
Depends
what
on
your protocol
what your
is.
protocol is, how much you actually need, how many eggs we're trying to grow. There's which brand of injections you're actually going to choose.
Sure.
Local brands versus
Which clinic you
global
go
brands.
to. You can get the same medication for 70 and someone else might say it's 90. So
Yeah.
you know,
Got
you have
it.
to do your due diligence there as well.
And the process then means lakh and a half is for the process.
Yeah.
So,
So it's-
practically 50% is the procedure,
Yeah.
40% is the medication, 10% is how I'm thinking about it.
right.
And then you have the second half of the procedure. Yeah, so it's included because you have in IVF you'll have the egg retrieval procedure, but you also have the embryo transfer procedure. And most IVF clinics, I think, also give you a double. Like you'll be able to do 2 embryo transfers included in your
one
your
procedure.
package, so that you can try this month first implantation. It doesn't work. Okay, next month we'll try another implantation, and then every transfer after that is also billed separately.
Okay, so which basically means if someone would really have to go through 4 tries, they have to be mentally prepared to shell out about 10 lakh rupees.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
a
then
lot
there's
of-
also things that we left out like ICSI. There's also things that we left out like genetic testing that
Go
people
ahead.
will do.
And what would ICSI be like? You said that it's
It's one and the
specialized where
same.
it's one
It's-
sperm,
yeah.
but it adds to the cost?
It doesn't, so it depends on which clinic you go
Yeah.
to. So
Okay.
a lot of clinics prefer exclusively doing ICSI only, so that's kind of built into the cost. But if you go to some clinics, they'll add on ICSI as a separate cost as well, which
But that add-on would be 10-20% at
yeah, it'll be around
that's
like
it.
30, 40,
40,000, like
Yeah.
around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it instead of like a 2.5, we'll take it to like a 3 lakh if
Right.
at all.
Correct.
Now, this is
Okay.
just this is also highly dependent on the type of clinic you go to or the type of hospital you go to, because you can also get some of these procedures done at like 1.5 lakhs.
Yeah, I mean,
Total.
we see ads behind, auto rickshaws in Gurgaon, which
Yeah.
is 1
75,000.
lakh.
Yeah.
1 lakh.
Yeah.
25,000, yeah.
So-
25,000?
We
Yeah,
saw an
we
ad
saw
that
it
said
with-
25,000. We're like, how is this? How does this math match?
So what do you think? Is it that they're only quoting the cost of the procedure and
Right.
they're not quoting the medicines and
That's
the tests?
exactly it. That's
Yeah.
exactly
I
it.
think
that's
that
how
also
you-
something that we've seen is that, once someone comes in and says, okay, it's only going to cost me 75,000 to have this baby, they'll say, okay, like 75,000 is okay. And then you start the procedure and then you're like, okay, now you need to get this injection. Now you need to get this injection. And that cost is also layered as you go. And then
Yeah,
once
so
you
it's almost
start,
like
So
you're like,
baiting
what
them
do you-
in with a
What do you do after you
A lot
start?
of clinics are notorious for this.
Yeah.
So once they get you hooked,
And
with the
it's pure-based
price,
marketing, right? Like,
Yeah.
and also like they're using, like once the doctor, like you started the procedure and the doctor says, I think that you need this. Then we'll like, abhi to already 75,000 we put down. We might as well just keep going because we need this for the cycle to end up the way that we want it to.
Okay, so 4 cycles, about 10 lakhs is what you're saying people should be mentally prepared and financially prepared to
12.
go through. God forbid if it takes 10 to 12 lakhs is if one has to go through 4
I think
procedures.
so. I think
Most
that the
people-
average is about 2 to 3 cycles. I wouldn't say it's 4
Yeah.
cycles. I would say it's 2 to 3 cycles. That is the average because some people continue on. that do the 4th, 5th, 6th, but some people also stop, and then some people also experience success by the 3rd cycle.
I have a few more questions on the process and the costs. One is, we hear these news reports, and I know this is definitely very prevalent in the US, is if you want an Ivy League sperm, it costs $10,000, $20,000 or more. Which makes me think that I remember speaking with this doctor friend once. And I was like, listen, is this true? Does it also happen in India that people ask for IIT and sperm and stuff? Or is it just made up stuff on social media? And they said, no, this is true. So I was like, why would a person who's generally like in a good job, has gone to a good college, why would they think of going and donating sperm? It's for the money. Okay, so what is it like if someone really has to, what do sperm donors get for a shot that they give? And is that the only thing? And what I would think is someone who's gone to an IIT and has a decent job, does it pay that much for them to really get a kick out of wanting to go and give it? Or is it, I don't even know if I'd call that thought perverted for someone, because I would just think if you've gone to a good college, you don't really even have the time to engage in such activities or thinking, I want to have these many kids, so I want to keep going and donating, because someday just this high of there are some 20, 30 kids in the world which are born out of my seed in some way. I don't know.
So, I think the movie Vicky Donor kind of ruined it for all of us to explain what sperm donation looks like. I think it brought a lot of awareness to the concept of it, but today our DMs are flooded with people who are trying to donate
every
sperm.
second day.
Really?
It's like people are like messaging to donate this sperm.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Because they can make a quick buck out of it. Right?
and what is that quick buck?
It depends on what.
Give me a range.
Their
Like I have no way to evaluate what
It could be anywhere from like 5,000 rupees to like 50,000 rupees.
50,000?
As you can see, this market is so grey. Like every question, you're like,
so
it
grey.
depends. It depends.
Oh, so this means that if someone actually went to IIM or an ISB, suddenly lost their job or is in the middle of some transition, and they're like, I need to pay my rent, and if I can get 50,000 in the market for my sperm, might as well go and do it. And or if someone wants to start up and like, I
know, I was just thinking
2
about
years
that.
of runway.
I was like, I need runway. And
I need runway.
I need quick cash. Maybe I'll just go donate.
It depends.
Really? Does it
No,
really?
I'm on this train with you. I was just evaluating your scenarios.
It happens. It also is about the ethics of it a lot of the times, because even collection centers or egg banks, they don't really take sperm from everybody. You have to have a certain criteria. You also have to have certain health. You can't just go and donate sperm and hope that it works. In most cases, it comes out of people who are aware enough that you can donate sperm. But really, sperm donation is not that high in demand as egg donation is. Because,
is it?
Because, like we said, right? Like you can regenerate sperm. So like even if you have an issue, men usually work on their health over a period of time. And also, it's really sperm donation is only used.
But you can't make more eggs, essentially.
Sperm donation is only used in the case where a man produces 0 to no sperm, like very, very, very small volumes, because there are invasive procedures as well for men to be able to extract the sperm. So there is an invasive procedure called TISA, MISA, where they inject.
This is quite like Ina, Meena, I mean, I don't even know. Does
like
this have
so they essentially they like try and extract the sperm with the needle and collect it and try and use whatever. I know it's graphics.
You said needle and now it sounds
scary.
very scary.
It is. I'm thinking of a non-graphic way to say this, but they are able to extract the sperm.
Aspirate the sperm.
Yeah,
similarly.
but it's with a needle, so how would you aspirate?
You can't.
It's like a syringe. You're kind of putting it in the scrotal sac and you're extracting it, and then it's being used in the lab. Okay.
So in essence, it's in a very, very, very low likelihood that a sperm donation is required. And in the case that it is required, there is a bank. And so it's a concept of supply and demand, right? Like there are a lot of people who want to give sperm to earn the quick buck, but you might not get enough money for it because there's not enough demand for it.
Got it.
Versus in the case of, say, an egg donor, because it is a invasive procedure, and also because more women today are dealing with premature ovarian insufficiency or poor egg quality, a lot of doctors recommend egg donor.
Okay. And thank you guys. I think this is taking out a lot of time to do this today, but hopefully to educate people on this very important subject. And I know we've all taken out this entire day to shoot this, and this is probably going to be like a short episode, maybe less than an hour, but we'll try to pack as much takeaways for people who are watching so that they can take care of their fertility right in time, and hopefully we can help them save a lot of heartbreak in the process. But thank you, Dipalie. Thank you, Nidhi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Egg freezing is a growing category in India, still out of reach of many financially. But with more businesses coming into this sector, there will be a lot more disruption in cost and efficiency that we may see. Do share this episode with someone who may need it, and follow to get more from Founder's Office with Sarthak Ahuja.